Hello and welcome back everyone, Weeb online, and today I'm gonna continue the story What If Naruto Cheated on Sakura with Hinata Part 2. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Naruto. Wake up! His eyes flitted open after a firm prod, and it took some time for his vision to clear up. Sakura was standing in front of him, looking very angry. What? He gritted his teeth and screamed. He sat up, and the sofa squeaked softly. Where did you go last night and what time did you reach home? Sakura growled. She put her hands on her hips and looked at him icily. That's honestly none of your business. Her mouth opened slightly, perplexed by the reply. What do you mean it's none of my business? You left without telling me anything. You didn't answer your phone? I was worried sick about you. Naruto yawned loudly and closed his eyes. He sighed and took his phone out of his pocket, but just as he was ready to check the time, Sakura took it away. Naruto got up and grabbed his phone back before she could check the front screen. Don't do that. Naruto erupted fiercely. Just stop. Sakura was taken aback by the abrupt action. Naruto, I swear to God if you're... He muttered, I'm already late for work. Have a nice day, Sakura. She pushed him back, chewing on her lower lip. Despite his slight stumble, he maintained his poise and straightened his posture. She screamed, I hate you, while repeatedly striking his chest. Sakura, stop it. Even though she was crying, she continued to strike him. I hate you. I hate you, after everything I've done for you, she exclaimed. Am I not enough for you? Naruto shouted, stop it, and pushed her back gently. She fell flat on her ass after stumbling and losing her footing. He considered leaving her, but he sighed when he noticed how her lower lip quivered and the tears trickled down her flushed cheeks. He was told to simply leave by every nerve in his body, but he was unable to do so. He approached her and lifted her off the ground. He trailed off, Are you okay? She lowered her head and answered, Why yes. Naruto, I am sorry. No, you're not. Lately, I haven't been myself. No, this is how you've always been. Sakura declared, I just need some help. I'm going to see a therapist. I've been doing a lot of thinking and it's not fair to you. I don't know where this rage comes from or why I'm like this. A few years ago, it would have been nice to hear that. He sounded indifferent as he said, Well, that's good to hear. I have to go now. Sakura said nothing that Naruto believed. She decided to attend therapy now. When she said and did all those things to him, where was the energy? He felt a migraine coming on, so he rubbed the middle of his forehead and leaned back in the chair. The thought of what had happened the night before made his heart skip a beat. He gave Hinata a kiss. Even though there were only 2 brief kisses, it had an impact on him. Even though he knew deep down that it was wrong, he decided to go ahead despite the fact that every fiber in his body told him to stop. Officially, Sakura was correct. All that was left to ask was, what should I do now? He was surprised when Hinata admitted that she felt the same way about him, but there was something so right about her. How they came to be together. Their companionship. Their relationship. However, the logic wasn't. Even though he was only a few years older than Hinata, she was still young and had her whole life to worry about. Although he was already married and had a successful career, his life did not turn out as he had hoped. After he let out a small laugh, there was a deadly silence. Even though his parents were young when they got married, he didn't recall them experiencing half of what he did with Sakura. Sakura was a strong-willed, feisty character, much like his mother. Isn't their relationship supposed to work? Old man. When Kin slammed her hand on top of Naruto's desk, he looked up. With both hands on her hips, Kin exclaimed, What the hell happened to you? And I'm not taking, I'm fine, as an excuse. You've been on my mind for the past few months now and I'm worried. I'm F. Kin crossed her arms and uttered the words, bullshit. When Naruto's gaze strayed to the window, she paused, saying, You can fool everyone around you, but not me. Is everything okay? I know you can write me up for cursing, but I'm just worried, okay? You don't have to tell me everything, but you've been acting so strange lately. He glanced at her for a moment and grinned, thinking of how considerate Kin can be. Her cheeks flushed palely, and she averted her gaze for a moment. This old man is just going through a midlife crisis, he was chuckling. I'm fine, honestly. Are you sure you don't want to talk about it? Naruto smiled and leaned back in the chair, saying, I'm fine, trust me. So, you've been dating Zaku for a while. How is he treating you? He treats me really good, she whispered. I actually like him. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Make sure he treats you the way you want to be treated." She gave him a quick smile and nodded. She took her phone from between her breasts and showed Naruto her home screen, saying, "I didn't get to show you what he looks like. Isn't he handsome?" A picture of them grinning and smearing cake all over one another was displayed on the screen. Naruto smiled as he felt warm inside for some reason. "You look like you're enjoying yourself, huh? You two make a cute couple." She put the phone to her chest and let out a dreamy sigh. "He makes me feel so special. When we get married, I'll make sure to invite you to the wedding." "Can't wait. Thanks for listening to me, Naruto. You're a cool dude, and I hope whatever you're going through gets fixed," Kin said with a grin. "I'm going to the break room to grab a snack. See ya later, old man." As she walked out of the room, Naruto watched. He threw back his head and glared at the ceiling after he left. He inadvertently felt Hinata's lips as the image of her lips on his replayed in his head. He felt special, even if only for a short time. 7:50 p.m. Hinata gazed at her friend and coworker, Ino, with concern. They were in the bathroom stall at the moment. Hinata held her ponytail up while Ino squatted over the toilet, vomiting. As Ino released another round, she squeezed her eyes shut and asked, "How long have you been feeling like this?" In between, she gasped, "A week now. Is it possible you're pregnant?" Ino grabbed some toilet paper and said, "No. I'm on birth control. I think I ate something bad. I'll be fine." Hinata rubbed Ino's back and said, "Maybe you should see the doctor. A week of vomiting is excessive. You're going to get yourself dehydrated and sick. I have an appointment next week. Until then, I'll be fine." Hinata sighed and frowned. "Just let me know if you're not feeling well. I can take care of the shop." Ino spun around and exclaimed, "No way. Since the advertisements and renovations, the store has been extremely busy." "Yes, but it's Wednesday today. Usually, it's slow, and it's almost time for closing." Hinata tried assuring her that everything would be alright. "I'm alright. Sincerely." With Hinata's assistance, Ino stood up and said, "I'll just sit in the corner to catch myself before I help you clean." "Fine, but you can be so stubborn, Ino." Hinata sighed. "I'll make you some hot tea to calm your stomach." Ino said, "I'll be out in a minute." She walked through the doors and said, "Okay, but just let me know if you need to leave." As she poured the hot tea into the blue teacup and watched as the liquid turned dark, Hinata couldn't help but complain to herself that Ino needs to take it easy. Then she remembered what had happened the previous night. She and Naruto hadn't texted all day, and perhaps it would have been best to give him some space because she had done something she was adamantly opposed to. It wasn't fair, but... Her heart skipped a beat, and she shook her head. He was obviously still working on his marriage, but she couldn't understand why he would try to save it. If her partner had been physically and mentally abusive, she would have left them right away, right? Perhaps it was easier said than done. They evidently had a strong emotional bond because they had known each other for a long time. "Excuse me." Hinata was startled out of her reverie by an unidentified voice, and as she slowly turned around, she realized it was Ino's best friend, whose name she couldn't recall. "I apologize. It was not my intention to startle you." "No, it's all right. I ought to have paid closer attention. How may I assist you?" Hinata inquired. "I'm trying to find Ino. I heard her say she was in." "I'm here, forehead," Ino declared as she left the bathroom. "You look terrible, Ino," Sakura remarked after observing her best friend's pallor. She put her hand on Sakura's forehead and said, "Sakura, please don't yell." Yes, Sakura was her name. The woman with the pink hair hurried over to sit beside her friend and asked, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine." Hinata set a tiny mug in front of her and said, "Here you go, Ino." "Thank you, Hinata." She returned to the counter to get ready to close for the evening after nodding. "Are you certain you're okay?" Sakura inquired. "Yes. What's happening, then?" "This morning, you sounded really agitated." The two women seemed to be oblivious to Hinata's glance, so she shrugged and returned to her work. Sakura sighed and said, "Ino, I'm going to throw in the towels." "Now what did he do?" Ino asked, taking tea sips here and there. "Temari's pregnant." Ino nearly spat the tea on Sakura as her eyes grew wide. "What? I wasn't informed of that by Shikamaru." The name Shikamaru sounded familiar, and Hinata's ear perked up. "We saw them in the mall almost a month ago, and she was at 4 weeks, Sakura said. "I will give him a kick to the ass. He kept it a secret from me." Sakura let out a frustrated sigh and said, "I guess I turned them off from saying anything. I'm upset, Ino." "I am aware. What took place? How did you discover Temari was expecting?" She enjoyed a good gossip, regardless of Ino's mood. Sakura looked down and remarked, "We saw them in the mall," and she announced it. "What's wrong, Ino?" he said to Shikamaru. "When I told my mother that I had overheard him and Shikamaru conversing, he had the audacity to lash out at me. How fair is that? Can't I express how frustrated I am? I doubt Naruto would have objected to you venting to your mother, Sakura, among all individuals." When Hinata heard Naruto's name, she froze, not believing that this stunning woman was Naruto's wife, even though Konoha was a huge name. How could I have predicted that she would be so untidy and bring it up during the family meal? Even though I adore him, he needs to improve. I believed he was. You mentioned that he was cooking and cleaning more. Yes. He even pushed me this morning, she whispered, to clear his guilty conscience. What? Why? Astonished, Ino asked. Because I questioned him last night about his whereabouts. I knew he had to be with a woman, but I'm not sure what time he got home. He had that scent. Ino said, "That's not good," Sakura, with concern. "Wait, did you bother him?" She muttered, "I kind of shouted at him. Ino, it's just so stressful. Even though I've done a lot for him, I still receive terrible treatment. I never do anything good enough." Sakura, you are aware of Naruto's love for you. You two ought to think about getting married counseling. After the two stopped talking, Hinata resumed taking the various pastries out of the case. "Nay Hinata. Before you post it, may I have a sweet roll?" Ino yelled. Pulling the roll from the parchment papers, she muttered, "Sure," and then slowly walked over to the two girls, setting the plate in front of Ino. Would you like something to eat?" Sakura was asked by Hinata. "Thank you, but no, I ate already," she said with a smile. "Hinata, you've been at work all day." Pulling out the wooden chair, Ino said, "Come sit down, come." Hinata reluctantly sat down and glanced at Sakura, who was dressed in a dark green work scrub and had her hair pulled back in a low ponytail. They were such a good match, and she had always wondered what Naruto's wife would look like. Sakura glanced to her side and grinned as she realized someone was observing her. "It's Hinata, correct? You're Sakura, aren't you?" "Hi," she smiled. "Your hair is so pretty," she said, stroking Hinata's long, smooth locks. "Thank you." When Ino said, "I told her she has very pretty hair," she also reached for a handful to touch. "It's so soft and shiny." Sakura said, "And she has such a small face. You're adorable. Do you have a boyfriend? Are you going to school?" "Hinata's going to be finished within the next few months," Ino replied. "And sadly, as much attention as Hinata gets, she doesn't have a boyfriend." Sakura sneered, "Good. Men are a waste of time." "Don't start," Ino remarked, giving her a fierce look. Hinata murmured, "I should finish cleaning up. Are you feeling better, Ino?" "I am. Thank you." She got to her feet and said, "That's good to hear. It's a pleasure meeting you again, Sakura." "Likewise, Hinata." Hinata scampered to her feet and hurried to clean behind the counter. She glanced over the message before being interrupted by a faint buzzing sound coming from her pocket. "Naruto." "Hello." Her gaze strayed to Sakura as she grumbled to Ino, then returned to the message. Hinata. "Hello Naruto. Is it okay if I come get you tonight from work? I'm hoping to see you." Hinata. "Naruto. What's wrong? I am aware of what happened last night." Hinata. "Hinata. No, that isn't it." Hinata. "Naruto, tell me about your wife." There was a moment's silence. Hinata. "I understand that asking that question was strange. Are you familiar with Ino Yamanaka?" Naruto. "It's not a strange question, and I'm friends with Ino. I will email you a photo of her. You know Ino, but how?" Hinata. "She works with me and is a friend." Her eyes grew wide as a picture appeared in her chat box. Naruto. "Honestly, I was unaware that Ino was employed there. I assumed she was enrolled full-time in school." Hinata. "Your wife is here talking to Ino, and she's really gorgeous." Surprised, Naruto gazed at the message. He never would have imagined that Ino was friends with Hinata, much less co-workers. The only thing he could think of was that Sakura was there disparaging him. Naruto. "I believe she is referring to me." Hinata. "How did this morning go?" "What do you mean, Naruto?" Hinata. "She claimed that you shoved her, Ino." Naruto. "She continued to hit me, so I shoved her. That's all. I regret that you had to meet her in that manner." Sakura screamed, "Ino," as the young blonde puked on the ground. Hinata looked back and jumped. Sakura said, "I'm taking you to the emergency room," and got to her feet. Hinata picked up some cleaning supplies and went over to them, shoving the phone into her back pocket. "Ino, please go. This has been going on for a week now. Ino sobbed. Okay, I'm going. I'm sorry, Hinata. Her eyes stung and were watery. I'm going to take you, and why didn't you tell me you've been vomiting your brains out for a week? That's not good. I know. I know. Sakura helped her to the door by putting her arms around her. She said, I'm sorry, Hinata. From the window, Hinata observed the two passing it, more accurately, Sakura dragging Ino. After shaking her head, she went to mop the floor. After cleaning for 30 minutes, Hinata realized she had neglected to reply to Naruto. Hinata. I apologize for forgetting to respond to you. Sakura had to take Ino to the because she wasn't feeling well. Naruto. I just heard from Sakura. I'm hoping all is well with her. Hinata. I agree. Hinata. Would you mind coming here so we can have a conversation? Naruto. Certainly. I'll be over there soon. Hinata was thinking deeply. Despite her beauty, Sakura did not feel at ease in her presence. Even when she overheard their conversation, she didn't like it. Perhaps this was because she was biased based on what Naruto had disclosed, but it wasn't her relationship. She couldn't deny her feelings or desires for Naruto, but any problems in their relationship were between them. She wished that he was single. I wish he wasn't in love, she said. Why was he hanging on when their relationship didn't seem to be working, particularly if he was attracted to her? She muttered as she cleaned the counters, love is such a complex thing. She kept telling herself that since he was married, she should ignore it and cut him off, just like he did. However, the mere thought of doing so depressed her. She had a soft spot for Naruto, but she wouldn't deny that she was still hurt by the way he abandoned her. It was a cowardly move, though. She wiped the counter even more vigorously as her cheeks puffed out. When the bell rang, she felt as though her whole body was lighter and her heart was sinking to the bottom of her stomach. He was still attractive, even with his black hair. You would be blind not to notice tiny pink hearts floating around them, but the atmosphere between the two felt awkward. His voice was soft as he said, Hi, Hinata. When Hinata said she wanted to talk to him, Naruto wasn't sure how to prepare, but he had a thought. They remained in that position for a few more minutes after last night's kiss before he departed. He never even returned home. Rather, he simply drove around until nearly 5 o'clock in the morning. She answered softly, Hey, sit down and I'll get you something to snack on while I finish. He answered honestly, I don't think I can eat anything. She nodded and pouted. Would you like something to drink? He walked over to the counter and leaned over it, shaking his head. No. Hinata sighed as she glanced down and then back at Naruto. Naruto. She started there. When she gave him a cute glare, he grinned and said, Hinata. He secretly felt anxious. He was aware that their friendship might come to an end, and he would have to come to terms with that. Her longing questions came out like a train of bullets. She clutched the apron and gazed at the ground, asking, Why are you still with Sakura? Do you still love her? She finally turned to face him and said, I know I have no business being in your relationship, but I care about you. If you're not happy, shouldn't you leave? We've had happier times together, he muttered. I'm just stuck on the fact of what if it gets better? What if there's a change? I've invested so much time. She scowled, clearly, it isn't. If I'm not happy, I end my relationships. When Kiba became more jealous and didn't choose his words carefully, I ended it. Sorry. I know I'm not married or... She spoke, and Naruto heard it all. Her emotions. Her feelings. Her enthusiasm. Even though everything she said was accurate, that thought continued to nag at the back of his mind. The bottom of her lip was turning ruby red from all the biting she was doing. And you kissed me, and I kissed you. You're married, and, she said, feeling at a loss. A part of her wanted to run into his arms and kiss him until the end of time, and another part of her felt bad. Usually, she had a motto to live by, but the day she met Naruto, everything changed. She still desired to feel his arms encircle her waist and draw her closer. Naruto sat down on the stool and said, I'm sorry for putting you through that, Hinata. That's why I tried my best to stay away from you, and I'm sorry again for how I did it. I should have just told you from the beginning, then maybe this wouldn't have happened. She complained, I'm still upset about that. Who's to say you won't do it again? I promise you I won't unless you tell me to stop talking to you. But I don't want that. Her unexpected outburst surprised both her and Naruto. I'm just so confused, and when I saw your wife, she's so beautiful, Naruto, but it isn't fair. How she speaks about you isn't fair. Sakura hasn't always been like that. She was with me every step of the way, even after my parents' death. I didn't really have anyone, but Sakura was there for me, but I don't know. I'm just as confused about this entire thing. Then she whispered, about me. No, about me. He gave a sour laugh. I'm not a good person, Hinata. I dragged you down this rabbit hole with my inconsistencies, actions, and indecisiveness. That was not my intention. I've never done something like this before. He raised his eyebrows. But I guess everything Sakura said was true. When Hinata touched Naruto's arm, he looked up. His heart started beating erratically. His heart used to beat for Sakura at one point. What are you really thinking about, Naruto? A lot. I just have a lot on my plate and I don't know why it's so difficult. He tilted his head. I just want to feel free. Hinata put her hand on his and looked into his eyes, which glistened. Standing on her tiptoes, she gave him a gentle kiss. He drew her in and kissed her more deeply. Even though it was only yesterday, he still missed her. He missed the sensation of her lips against his heart's rhythm when he was near her. A part of her wanted Naruto to see that she was there for him, even though she knew what she was getting herself into. That she has the power to alleviate his suffering. That he should be for her, and she was for him. She knew in her heart that she would not want to be in this circumstance. Hell, she would be angry and disappointed if she discovered her sister was acting in this manner. However, how could she deny these emotions? Hinata took a step back and covered her burning face with her eyes. I need to finish in here and then I'll be done. It seemed as though all of Naruto's problems and anxieties vanished, and he was on cloud 9. Aside from the sounds of Hinata cleaning, the shop was silent. Naruto read Sakura's texts while he was cleaning. Sakura. I'm going to stay with her while they run some tests. Naruto. All right. Please keep me informed, Sakura. K. Hinata said, thank you for waiting for me, Naruto, after assembling her possessions. He grinned as he looked up. It's not a problem, he said, getting to his feet. On the way to Hinata's complex, the car ride was quiet. Neither of them felt the need to talk about what had happened, and the awkward atmosphere that had hovered around them had vanished. They shared a kiss for the third time. Being physically active 3 times. They had to stop themselves 3 times. She wanted Naruto, but perhaps she was being foolish and careless. She desired him. It wasn't until the car stopped moving that she realized they had arrived. It's been a long time since we've had a proper conversation. How are the classes? The trip to Kyoto? Your mom and dad? Does Hanabi still have my picture hanging up on her wall? I'm sorry you had to be hanged on her wall of strangers. Hinata murmured. She rubbed her arms and said, I told you, my family is really weird, but Mama and Papa are doing fine. Mama asks about you a lot. When Naruto noticed that she was shivering, he slightly increased the heater. She smiled and said, Papa is doing good too. Kyoto was really nice. I would like to go back there someday. Naruto leaned back in the car seat and hummed, I've been to Kyoto twice. Once was for the end of the year school trip and the second time was with my parents. It's a really beautiful place and I'm going to graduate soon. Naruto said, looking up at the top of the car, oh yeah? How does that make you feel? Nervous. But it's going to be exciting. She asked, did you not feel anxious when you graduated? He turned 50 shades red as he said, very nervous. I don't like to tell this story, but something embarrassing happened to me during graduation day. With eagerness, Hinata inquired, what happened? Naruto sobbed, I fell walking across the stage. I wanted to die. He heard her attempt to hide her laugh, and his head snapped to his right. Glancing down, she covered her mouth with her hand. Hi. She eventually burst out laughing so hard that she ended up clutching her stomach. Hinata laughed at Naruto's embarrassing moment as his face started to burn and he sank lower in the car's chair. She eventually managed to relax after it continued for a while. She laughed and said, I'm sorry, but that was funny. He teased, ha. Ha. Laugh at my expense, why don't you? The worst part, I believe there's a video about it online somewhere. Squeezing his red cheek, she said, you'll be fine. There's no need for you to be nervous, Hinata. You're a talented person and you have a strong passion for the things you love. Everyone knows how good your cooking skills are, and I truly believe you're going to make something out of your life. Naruto said with assurance. I can't wait to see what the future has in store for you. I know it'll be great things. Her insides twisted into knots when she heard him say that. Thank you. He looked at the clock and remarked, it's getting a little late. After taking a quick look at the time, Hinata gave him a fierce look. It's only 9:15. Are you trying to rid of me, Naruto? He shook his head and laughed. He looked at her and said, now why would I want to get rid of you? Her voice became softer as she asked, would you like to come inside? Sure, why not? I'll bring your bags upstairs. The walk to her apartment was like walking on feathers. Why did it feel so different now, even though they had made the walk to her apartment innumerable times? She removed her shoes and laid them neatly on the side while flicking on the lights. Taking the bags from Naruto, Hinata said, "I'll take these," and proceeded to her bedroom. Naruto walked over to the couch and took a seat. Except for Hinata, who was searching through her dresser for an article of clothing, the room was silent. He detested seeing his image on the TV screen staring back at him. He detested the sight before him. He detested seeing someone so frail. His blonde hair was missed. He missed the way his body looked. 10 bowls of ramen and another set 5 minutes later were missed. "Eat this," Hinata said, passing him a container of leftover Chinese food. Was she able to warm that up at any point? Did he spend so much time gazing into space that he was unable to detect the delightful aroma of the sauce? "I know you said you weren't hungry, but it'll be best to put something in your stomach." He took the food when his stomach rumbled. "Thank you," he murmured back. Hinata said, "It's fine," and went to the kitchen. The mention of the gym made his ears perk up. "When are you going back to the gym?" he asked. As she walked back towards him holding a bottle of cold water, she asked, "And when are you going to get rid of that color?" After setting it on the coffee table, she took a seat. "I can work out at home." He nodded and ate the food while Hinata watched. She cocked her head to the side and said, "You can, but don't you like working out at the gym? Why do you want to work out at home?" As Naruto gazed at the food, he pondered the reason behind his statement, "I'm not sure." She sighed, "Fine. As much as I hate working out, I'll come with you to the gym. You work out and I'll eat my cinnamon buns." Recalling their chat from a few months prior made Naruto giggle inside. "You would actually do that for me, Hinata?" She laughed and said, "Of course, I'm just eating cinnamon buns." That gave him energy and excitement, and he enthusiastically nodded. "That's not a problem at all. And you barely touched this food. You weren't able to eat it last night?" She answered, "I wasn't that hungry. After their kiss, how was she able to eat?" "Cinnamon buns. No, don't worry about me. I had a nice sandwich and lemon tea this morning," she grinned. "That doesn't sound like enough food," Hinata assured him. "Trust me, I'm fine." Hinata spoke most of the time while Naruto ate. She told him more about her trip to Kyoto and how she was still considering accepting the offer to go to Paris. Naruto paid close attention, and even after he finished his meal, she continued to discuss work, school, and past events with him. It also seemed that she had gone on a few more blind dates with Tenten. Although Naruto was unaware of how long 3 months would have been, a lot happened during that time. Naruto told Hinata, "For a quiet girl, you lead such an exciting life. Because there are so many things out there that make me happy." "Very true," she muttered under her breath, "even you." Naruto heard her words, whether they were quiet or not. Naruto leaned over and kissed Hinata, who closed her eyes. It was so passionate to her, but it wasn't harsh. She knew he shared her feelings if a kiss could reveal anything. She leaned forward and put her hand on his chest, closing the distance between them. Before long, Hinata was scaling Naruto's body. He put his arms around her waist and kissed her more deeply, seemingly unconcerned. Hinata was so disoriented. She felt as though someone was giving her butterflies inside of her thanks to Naruto's soft lips cushioning against hers and his firm yet gentle grip. Hinata lowered her gaze and regarded him curiously. He already understood what she was asking, so she didn't have to say anything. He stroked her red cheek with his thumb and tucked a few of her hairs behind her ear. Her bangs tickled him a little as she leaned forward and laid her forehead against his. "Do you want another?" "Yes." He smiled and kissed her again, and finally Hinata found the confidence to slide her warm tongue into his mouth. Even though the taste of the sweet and sour chicken was still there, she continued to eat it because it was one of her favorite foods. She let out a low moan, which only made Naruto more excited. The surrounding air was getting sticky and humid. Hinata started sucking all over Naruto's neck while he firmly closed his eyes. She continued to grind on him as his hold on her grew tighter. His pants tightened as her soft skin felt against the palm of his hands and her tongue swirled around his neck, sending shivers down his spine. "It had been a very long period," he said. Hinata, stop," as she sucked on his skin even more forcefully. She eventually had to stand up to breathe, and she gazed at Naruto. He was breathing heavily. She felt something hard against her, and her ivory skin reddened instantly, causing her eyes to travel down. "I'm sorry, Naruto." He said in a whisper, "It's fine." He gazed at the ceiling while running his finger through his wet hair. He wouldn't believe it if someone told him that he would cheat on Sakura in a few years. But fuck. Why was love so ambiguous? Or was he? He had a terrible habit of dragging people along with him. Despite her flaws, neither Sakura nor Hinata deserved this. Naruto, shouted Hinata. He looked directly into Hinata's eyes and said, I'm sorry, Hinata. I can't do this. She broke her heart. I'm a dog, Hinata. A two-faced dog who can't decide between the woman I love and the woman I'm growing feelings for. I can't do this to you, I just can't. Perhaps he wouldn't have cared so much if it had been a random stranger, but the guilt was finally getting to him. Hell, Hinata's feelings were more important to him than Sakura's. If anyone were to find out, it would ruin you, and I don't want that. You have so much to accomplish. Hinata's eyes began to water, and she tightened her hold on his shirt. She said, I don't care. Naruto held her hands and exclaimed, but I do, and you should too. He bit his lower lip and released his hand, saying, I can't give you what you want. Sakura is promising to go to therapy and I just don't want to hurt you. She should have regained her composure after that, but it was too late. He had captured her heart. She nodded as tears poured from her eyes. Her voice broke as she said, I understand. Part of Naruto was saying, fuck Sakura, do what you want. The other part was saying, you made a commitment, Naruto. You must stick to it. Naruto's feelings of guilt only grew worse. But I want you. Hinata wiped her eyes and said. She pressed her salty lips against his and said, I don't care what happens. Naruto closed his eyes and felt her warmth. I've never been so close to someone in my life, and it feels like I've known you for a lifetime. He felt the same way, but he couldn't deny it. It seemed to him that they were destined to be together. It seemed as though they had been acquainted for a very long time. I just don't want to hurt you, Hinata. I can't make a decision, Naruto said, glancing at her. She put her hands on the side of his cheeks, leaned forward, and nodded her head. She kissed his nose and whispered, I know. He felt a warmth being poured into him, and his blue eyes glistened. This sensation was so alien. Hinata. Yes. He nearly laughed as a pout formed on her plump lips. I just don't want to hurt you. She gave a headshake. You're not going to hurt me. She didn't care about the other woman, Sakura, or the potential consequences or how much this could hurt her if it didn't work out. Naruto was all that mattered to her at the moment. Looking directly into his eyes, she questioned, why, you also share these feelings, right? She saw his head droop a little and his eyes flinch before he looked directly into them. He gave a nod. I do. Hinata bit his lip and put her arms around his neck. After drawing her nearer, Naruto pressed his lips to hers. Maybe it was acceptable for him to not care if she didn't. He would do everything he could to keep Hinata safe. The two people encircling each other were directly exposed to the sun's rays as they passed through the open blind. When Hinata stirred a little, Naruto felt something touch his nose, causing it to wiggle. He felt something on his chest, making it difficult to move into a comfortable position. He slowly opened his eyes, looked around, and realized he was somewhere other than his home. Then he muttered, shit. He looked down to see Hinata still sleeping on him. The sight made his heart melt, and although he didn't want to wake her, he had to. He was worried that he had made a mistake, and it was already morning. He gently prodded the girl and even yelled at her until she opened her eyes. Hinata. He smiled cautiously as her large lavender eyes met his. I don't know what time it is, but I have to go now. She nodded and gave a sheepish smile. Okay. After she had left him, Naruto stood up from the couch and felt in his pockets for his phone. He took it out and nearly gasped when he saw the time. 10 o'clock in the morning had arrived. When he saw how many missed calls and texts Sakura had sent him, his eyes widened. In between yawns, Hinata questioned, is everything okay, Naruto? He muttered, yes, I'm just a little late to work. She said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you late. To which he replied, you didn't, I'm going to leave now. She rubbed her eyes, nodded, and yawned again. As he walked toward her, he asked, you're still tired, huh? A little. He leaned over and kissed her on the lips, grinning. I'll talk to you later, okay? Go into your room and get some sleep. She slowly got up from the couch and embraced Naruto by putting her arms around his waist. Her voice was drowsy as she answered, I'll talk to you later. Naruto was feeling extremely happy. He watched her walk into the bedroom, and as soon as the door shut, he ran out. What on earth was he meant to say to Sakura? Though he knew he had to, he considered texting her. When the elevator door opened, he lowered his head, swallowed the lump in his throat, and hurried to his office. He felt as though everyone was staring at him, even though they weren't. He was able to breathe at last after sneaking into his office. Even though he was still anxious, being at work at least helped him relax a little. After pulling out his phone, Naruto started texting her. Naruto. I apologize for only now seeing your message, my phone was on silent. She didn't take long to answer. Sakura. Naruto, what the devil? Sakura. Last night, I called all of you, really, are you serious? Where did you go? Sakura. You were probably seeing someone else. Sakura. You're so unbelievable right now. Naruto. I wasn't a Sakura. Naruto. I simply needed some alone time. Sakura. For what purpose? Due to the events of yesterday morning? Naruto. In agreement. You touching me is getting old to me. Sakura. I only do it when you annoy me, and it's not very often. Sakura. As of right now. Sakura. You ought to have told me if you needed some alone time, not to worry me. Naruto. I understand. I am aware. I apologize. Naruto. I'll compensate you. Sakura. Believing begins with seeing. Since he was certain that his voice would have identified him, he was only partially relieved that she did not call. Naruto. How long did you and Ino stay at the hospital? Were the doctors able to identify the issue? Sakura. Indeed. He shrugged when she failed to respond. She wanted to tell him more than she would have, and he wasn't one to snoop around about people's health. His phone rang, and he looked at it. Sakura. You won't inquire? Naruto. I assumed it wasn't my business because it seems you didn't want to tell me. Sakura. At least you could have tried to show concern. Naruto. I apologize. What's wrong with Ino, Naruto? Sakura. Despite popular belief, there appears to be a case of pregnancy dust in the air. Ino is expecting a child. The unexpected news caused Naruto's eyes to widen. He never would have thought that Ino would become pregnant. Naruto. Whoa. I'm unable to speak. Congratulations to her. Sakura. I suppose Naruto. What's the matter? Sakura. When will we consider options other than my becoming pregnant? Every one of my friends is either pregnant or has a child already. What time will it be my turn? Sakura. You haven't discussed it. Naruto. I believe we should have this discussion in person. We can discuss it this evening. Sakura. All right. Tonight, I'll be waiting for you. Avoid working late. Naruto. I refuse to. He was anxious now. Given the state of their marriage, having a child was not an option. He was appreciative that Shikamaru was able to make him see that he was foolish for not seeing it sooner. Kin grinned and remarked, I saw you sneaking in. My, the old man is never late to work. Naruto sneered. I guess I'm going through a rebellious stage in my midlife crisis. He saw the smirk on Kin's face widen even more. He raised an eyebrow and inquired, did something good happen between you and Zaku? No, but it seems something good happened to you. She was giggling. Naruto looked at her incomprehensibly. What are you talking about? He cocked his head to the side as she gestured to his neck. What? She took out her phone, snapped a picture of his neck, and showed it to him while giggling. When Naruto noticed some red marks on his neck, his eyes widened. Although it wasn't obvious, anyone who paid attention would notice. Sakura, too, he swallowed. When Naruto glared at her, she laughed and said, so that's why you were so cranky. You finally got you some, now you're on top of the world. With his front screen camera focused on the marks, he asked, how'd I get rid of these? Sitting on the leather chair across from him, Kin remarked, they aren't that deep, but I'll give it a few days before they fade away. Your wife sure had fun, huh? I think it's cute old people are still able to make love. Kin, between giggles, she said, I'm just joking. He moaned to himself as a reminder for a meeting appeared on his phone. He couldn't possibly stand in front of all those people looking like this for his presentation in an hour. I'm just noticing you're wearing the same clothes from yesterday, she said. You didn't go home? Naruto was getting anxious from all the interrogation. Kin was intelligent, and he knew she would figure him out the more she watched him. In less than a minute, she had a revelation. Her eyes widened, but Naruto saw that they returned to their normal size. She hurried out of the room, saying, you have a meeting and you're going like that? Stay right there. After half an hour, Kin returned carrying a plastic bag filled with goods. Naruto eyed the bag and asked, what's that? She took out a concealer and said, don't worry about it. I'm going to smudge a little bit of this on your neck to cover up those love bites. You should tell her to be careful next time, she murmured. While she worked on his neck, Naruto didn't say anything. You have to be careful when it comes to these types of things, she murmured. Naruto complained, I don't know what you're talking about, as his cheek blushed slightly. She smiled and said, I'm not stupid. Try not to let your wife see those. It'll be hard explaining it, and I'm sure blaming it on the mosquitoes isn't going to help. She took a step back and laughed. All done. She showed him the phone and snapped a photo of his neck. See. It was inconspicuous, which surprised him. You're going to have to wear concealer every day until they go away. Try not to let her kiss your neck. The taste can be icky. After glancing at her, Naruto turned his attention to the concealer on his desk. He was unable to say what he wanted to say. He would have admitted to going out if he had said, thank you, but remaining silent would have been an additional admission. Kin looked at him and said, don't worry, I won't say anything. She let out a loud sigh after saying, honestly, your wife is a bitch and I hate her guts. She shook her head in disappointment and remarked, I'm assuming she's the one that made you dye your hair. Honestly, I can't stand women like that. My mom was like that with every guy she met, and it never worked out. She turned on her heel and walked out of the office, saying, just try not to get caught, okay? Ya nay. Despite her casual demeanor, Kin was genuinely taken aback by Naruto's behavior. She could already see the signs on him without him having to confess. She never would have thought her good-looking boss would cheat on his wife, but who could blame him? She spoke to him in an uncool manner, and if she had been in his position, she would have cheated as well. She evaluated herself after seeing her mother over the years, and despite her poor taste in men, she would never be her mother. No one would ever convince those women otherwise, they had it coming. Kin murmured, I wonder what she looks like, to herself. Damn, why couldn't it be me? Naruto was confused, and this made him wonder even more. It was difficult to step out, that's awful. He had been locked out of their bedroom once more after Sakura had sobbed herself to sleep. She had not anticipated their conversation. He had no desire to have children, not with her. Not right now. And he meant it even though he didn't tell her this part, never. He wouldn't bring up a child with her. It was nerve-wracking to even consider raising a child in front of her. She had already caused him to deal with some problems, and now that he had actually found someone else, it all made no sense. He pulled out his phone and flung himself onto the couch. He had to reply to the text that Hinata had sent him some time ago. Naruto. I apologize for that. Was conversing with Sakura. Hinata. No worries. Is everything alright? Naruto. Yes, Ino's pregnancy and children are the reason she's a little upset. Hinata. Well, Hinata. Are you still interested in having kids with her? Naruto. Not at all. Naruto. No longer. That is not what I want. Hinata. I get it. Hinata. However, Ino is expecting, I'm happy for her. Naruto. Working with Ino still makes me laugh. When you asked me that, I was truly taken aback. Hinata. She's a wonderful colleague and friend, she genuinely watches out for me. Naruto. Ino has a maternal streak toward people she thinks are cute. Hinata. I'm so excited for her to see her child's final appearance. I have no doubt that he will turn out beautifully because Ino is so gorgeous. Naruto. Hinata, you're also gorgeous. Hinata. I'm grateful. Naruto. You're also a very skilled sucker. Hinata. Hold on, what? Naruto. My neck is covered in numerous love marks from you. Hinata. I apologize, have I caused you any trouble? Naruto. Accompanying Sakura. No Hinata. Naruto. Yes, with one of my employees. She worked it out without my having to say anything. Hinata. Oh no, I apologize, Naruto. It wasn't my intention. I simply like it. I ought to have exercised more caution. Naruto. All is well with you. Hinata. I feel bad now, though. What happens if she notices? Naruto. She believes I am already. Naruto. No worries. Hinata. Do you have any doubt? Naruto. Good. Hinata. Is it possible for us to return to the internet cafe? Naruto. When she works overnight, I'll take you. Hinata. All right. I do miss you. Naruto. I also miss you. How was your leisure day? Hinata. Nothing went wrong. I did some studying and caught up on some assignments. Tenten is staying with me tonight after coming over. Neji should be over soon, I think. Naruto. Really? You believe so? Hinata. It's always like that, and he's most likely knocking. Naruto. Oh. Hinata. I was correct. Can we meet at lunch tomorrow? Naruto. Tomorrow, are you off? Hinata. Indeed, I am. Naruto. I typically eat lunch at 12 o'clock. Will you benefit from that? Hinata. In agreement. Alright, I'll see you tomorrow. Naruto. Adds a happy face. Hinata. Naruto. Good night. Naruto. Hinata, good night. Green eyes. He simply didn't know at the time, but he fell in love the moment he laid eyes on them. He thought it was wonderful how the light reflected off them. They were shimmering, and they would swell up when she was excited. He was drawn in by her green eyes, which gave him a sense of security, joy, and uniqueness, but now they pushed him away. Sakura yelled at Naruto as he took the phone out of his ear. The poor woman was obviously still upset about last night. How could her spouse turn her down for a child? She sobbed, "I've done so much for you, why?" He was unable to speak. He was aware of the reason, but he lacked the courage to tell her. "I have to go, Sakura." In a low whisper, she said, "After I've done everything for you, why must you treat me like this?" His heart shook when he heard that, not because he felt bad, but because he was angry. His top priority in life had always been Sakura, and he always made sure to prioritize her needs over his own. He only wanted her, so he never did anything she accused him of. She was all he needed. Sakura was the only woman he saw during that period. But all of this was too late now. With a sigh, he hung up and tossed his phone in the back seat. She ultimately proved to be correct. Naruto is unfaithful. He gave another woman a kiss. He sensed another female. He was attracted to the other woman. He felt himself losing it, and let out a small laugh. Is Naruto dishonest? Did the Naruto, who served as the princess's stomping ground, cheat? The Naruto who prioritized the feelings of that girl with the pink hair? That Naruto? His phone rang in the background, and he squeezed the bridge of his nose. Life was too short. As the door to Hinata's apartment opened, he was greeted by the crisp aroma of sugar and cinnamon. When she saw the attractive man, her cheeks flushed and her big lavender eyes widened a little. Naruto, he ruffled her hair, grinned, and entered. "How are you doing, Hinata?" He nearly collapsed when Hinata gave him a surprise back hug. He felt her arms encircle his waist, and a warmth crept into the pits of his stomach. Whispering, "I'm doing fine now," she said. He was flustered, and his heart pounded wildly. "I'm glad you're doing fine." She slowly released him to allow him to finish removing his shoes before heading to the kitchen. After finishing, Naruto accompanied her into the kitchen, where he examined the various packages arranged on the counters. "Were you practicing making bread?" Hinata chuckled uneasily. "Yes. I've been up since 3 baking." Naruto was unable to look away in utter amazement. "You've been up ever since?" "Yes, but I'm not sleepy. Why bread? I don't know." When Naruto started laughing, the tips of her ears turned red. "Hinata, that's so strange. Is this something you usually do?" She nodded after pressing her index fingers together. "Every once in a while." "That's cute," he said with a genuine smile. "I know you," he said, pausing when he noticed 2 trays of cinnamon rolls on the left counter. "Perhaps you ought to have made some instead." Taking him by the arms, Hinata dragged him from the kitchen, saying, "Why are you in my kitchen?" She let out a cry of shame. "I counted 12 cinnamon rolls just now." After pushing him onto the couch, Hinata sat next to him, her arms crossed and her face still flushed with shame. Why was she embarrassed? Perhaps Naruto had noticed a side of her that she had been attempting to conceal. Hinata had the rare opportunity to bake cinnamon rolls and a handful of bread every blue moon. She would be up creating various bread loaves at 2, 3, or even 5 in the morning. When Naruto gently pinched her arm, her heart skipped a beat. "Why are you pouting?" "Because you laughed at me. Are you upset with me?" She shook her head and uncrossed her arms, saying, "No, I just thought you might find it weird." Hinata glanced at him quickly and was taken aback to see that he was being playful, since he appeared serious when posing the question. "Hinata, why would I think that was strange? Doing baking is something you enjoy. No matter the time of day, I believe it's lovely to devote your time to creating things you enjoy." Her feelings for him only grew stronger after hearing that. She gazed longingly into his eyes while listening to her heartbeat, wondering why it was beating so loudly and whether it had ever beat this way for Kiba or any other guy. When Hinata felt his gentle lips against hers, she closed her eyes, wondering why kissing would make her feel so liberated. She put her hands on the side of his cheeks and opened her eyes, saying, "Aren't you hungry, Naruto?" As Hinata gazed into his eyes, he lost all focus when he kissed her, and he hadn't even heard her question. "You have some beautiful eyes, Naruto, and why are your eyelashes longer than mine?" Hinata pouted. Yes. What, Naruto, are you saying yes to?" She giggled. He rubbed the back of his head and grinned sheepishly, saying, "To be honest, every time we kiss, I lose focus." With great care, Hinata leaned in to close the distance between them. She felt light all over, and everything around her seemed to vanish except for Naruto. She could feel the warmth radiating from his body, and before she knew it, she was on top of him. Why did he make her feel this way? Why did he make her want to do these things? The way his arms were wrapped around her gave her the impression that he was her safe haven and that nothing could hurt her. If she felt this way, she wanted him to feel the same way, that he was her safe haven and that she would always welcome him in. Murmuring, "I'm sorry," Naruto buried his head between her breasts. "What's the reason for your apology?" Playing with his soft blonde hair, she posed the question. The man said nothing more, but Hinata felt something pressing against her most private area, and then she remembered that it had happened before. She kissed the center of his forehead and said, "Ah, you're fine." When Naruto tipped his head back to face her, Hinata felt a lightning strike come straight at her. "What?" Hinata looked at him and asked. "May I stay with you for the remainder of the day?" "How about the job?" "It is all right," he shrugged. "The majority of my projects are finished, and I don't have any meetings." "I take it you won't get into any trouble?" After shaking his head, he gave her a firm squeeze and said, "No." "Is there a movie we can watch together?" The way her lavender eyes glistened and the corner of her lips curled up gave him a sense of warmth he hadn't experienced in a long time. "Yes, we can." It had been a long time since she had seen a movie with a friend, but she felt silly, so she jumped off him and ran into the room to get a blanket for them to share. The day was slowly passing without either of them noticing it. At one point, Hinata had climbed onto Naruto's lap and snuggled up against him while he watched the film, which was about a maid who was given away by a cruel madam to her young nephew so that he could claim his inheritance. As the film was playing, Naruto stroked Hinata's hair and all he could think about was how nice she smelled. Midday had declared itself, and Hinata could feel herself growing drowsy, but she fought it because she wanted to spend the entire day with Naruto, and he was happy to see her resist. "Hinata, you can go to bed if you're tired, don't you?" Reluctantly, she said, "No, I want to spend the..." She covered her mouth, letting out a yawn. "Well, I'm a little sleepy myself. Wou, are you up for sharing a bed?" She muttered. "I would love that, love." She was ecstatic. With the blanket in hand, she guided him to the large bedroom and shut the door behind them, not even noticing when her bare feet touched the carpet floor. It still felt like she was walking on cloud nine when she was beside him. When she closed the bedroom door, she felt a great deal of anxiety all over her body. She climbed onto the bed and looked at Naruto, who appeared a little hesitant. She smiled, understanding why he would feel this way, and said, "I won't force you to do anything you don't like. If you don't want to sleep with me, that's fine." Sleeping on the same bed wouldn't matter because they had already shared a kiss, would it? "May I remove my work clothes, please?" "You're all right," she answered too enthusiastically. When Naruto started to undress, Hinata's eyes were fixed on him and she was unable to turn away. As he pulled up his shirt, Hinata's eyes widened and he said, "Naruto, you have a tattoo." She pointed to his stomach and yelled. He nodded, feeling in his stomach, "I got it when I was 18. She laughed and said, "You didn't tell me you were secretly a bad boy." The fact that he was there with most of his clothes off stirred something inside of her, and she laughed with a mixture of nervousness and sincerity. "I'll leave my work pants on." It had been so long since he had been on a bed that he gathered all his courage and, with trepidation, he joined Hinata on the top of her bed. His whole body relaxed as soon as his bottom touched the bed, and he fell backward until his head hit the fluffy pillow and he grinned. He would resemble a small child cuddling her pillow as Hinata watched him out of the corner of her eye and smiled slightly. "May I turn off the lights, please?" "I don't mind." When Hinata clapped her hands twice, the lights went out right away. Naruto gasped, and he clapped twice as well, turning on the lights. He looked at her in shock, and then clapped his hands once more, turning off the lights. "Wow," he cried out. Naruto continued to clap his hands, causing Hinata's right eye to twitch. Before he could turn the lights back on, she grabbed his hands and said softly, "Don't you dare." "Sorry," he said with a nervous laugh. She let go of him, rested her head on the pillow, and turned to face Naruto. She hoped to see his outline, but her blackout curtains made it difficult to see anything. Perhaps if she could just... Shakily, she put her hand on his chest, and Naruto felt the tiny goosebumps instantly spread across his skin. "Will you keep me?" She plucked up the courage to inquire. Naruto's heartbeat told Hinata that he was just as nervous as she was, but she didn't feel as flushed. He scooted closer to her, swallowed the lump in his throat, and pulled her close to him until there was no gap. He caressed her head gently and occasionally kissed the top of her head. "What kind of shampoo do you use, Hinata?" "It's a lavender coconut. Are you bothered by the odor?" "No, I like your scent the most," Naruto said, closing his eyes and shaking his head. Satisfied, she rested her head on his chest and smiled constantly. She was so happy right now. 8 p.m. on the same day. "I told you to make sure you had everything, didn't I?" Neji remarked, irritated by Tenten's lack of memory. "You hurried me out the door." She let out a bark. The stoic man sneered, "That was hours ago, and you're just remembering." "Let's go." "You don't have to come." Tenten sighed and said, "I'll just go up there and get my wallet." "You should call Hinata to open the door." She took a key out of her pocket and shook her head, saying, "I forgot to return this to Hinata." "Who knew it might be useful?" The untamed girl smiled. "Just hurry up so we can go. You're so impatient," she complained. "I'll be right back. Stay with me." Neji leaned back in the chair as the car door slammed, wishing he had accompanied her to cut down on the amount of talk she and Hinata were having. When Tenten knocked on the door and got no response, she shrugged, inserted the key, and went into Hinata's apartment. Just as she was ready to remove her shoes, she saw an extra pair by the door's entrance. "Really? You didn't tell me about this mystery man," she said with a laugh. After quietly shutting the door, Tenten noticed her wallet on the kitchen counter and then the bread loaves. "Didn't she say she had an order? What keeps them here?" Tenten shrugged, picked up her wallet, and tiptoed to Hinata's bedroom, where she pressed her ear against it but heard no sound. The shoes by the door were obviously men's, but Hinata wasn't the kind to invite men over, especially in her bedroom. She knocked softly on the door, but no one answered, so she was most likely out. Tenten opened the bedroom door because she was nosy. When Hinata heard her bedroom door open, her ears twitched. Oddly, since she was nestled into Naruto's chest, it couldn't have been him, but who could it be? "Tenten!" Neji yelled. "Where is Hinata and why are you taking so long?" Hinata opened her eyes. Tenten was about to turn on the light when Hinata snatched up the bulky blanket and wrapped it around Naruto's head. She could feel Naruto stirring next to her, and every nerve in her body shook. Tenten had never seen Naruto, but she was aware that if the girl saw a strange man lying on her bed, she would be unable to contain her speech. Tenten exclaimed, "Hinata," with surprise, despite the playful gleam in her eyes. "Tenten," Hinata said with a slight smile. She approached the taller girl and gently removed the blanket, asking, "What are you doing here?" When her friend tried to look at the silhouette on her bed, she stepped on her tiptoes to try to block her view. "How did you get in?" Tenten cheerfully answered, "Ah, I had your keys. I came to get my wallet because I forgot it. I see you have company over." Neji walked up to the two girls and asked, "Company?" But Hinata quickly shoved Tenten out and slammed the door after her. Tenten said, "Whoa, Hinata," and staggered back a little. "Tenten, you shouldn't enter someone's place without notifying them first," Hinata yelled. Tenten laughed uneasily as he heard the girl's distress. "I'm sorry, Hinata, I just got curious to know who was here." "Company?" Neji asked again, drawing the two girls' attention. The Tenten moaned, "Oh, Neji. Hinata is a grown woman. She can have anyone she wants over." She was uneasy with Neji's intense stare, but she knew he would suspect something was wrong if she looked away. His arms were crossed, and his gaze lingered on the closed door, which Hinata soon noticed. His mouth was poised to speak, but he refrained. Since this was unusual for his sister Hinata, the words he wanted to say would come across as an interrogation. They most definitely wouldn't be in her bedroom if she had company. He would have been the first to find out, but perhaps she was dating again. She might have returned with that dog boy. He could feel his mind racing, and he detested overthinking. Neji looked at Tenten, who had crept into the kitchen to steal some bread, and asked, "Did you get your wallet, Tenten?" Tenten said, Yes," as she scratched her cheek. "I'm sorry again, Hinata. Can you forgive me?" "Only because you're my friend," Hinata answered him. She went to the kitchen and put a loaf of bread in a clear bag. "Drive safely." Neji looked at her again and then went out. "Call me if you ever need me, Hinata." Tenten grinned and trailed behind Neji. "See y'all later, Hinata," she said. "I'm sorry." Hinata said, "It's okay. Please drive safely," and trailed behind them. Neji turned back to face her and pursed his lips, considering saying something, but changed his mind. He couldn't deny the overprotectiveness that was evident, but Hinata had the right to do whatever she wanted with a man. She had been acting strangely for the last 3 months, but she insisted she was fine every time he asked her what was wrong. Finally saying, "Good night, Hinata," Neji turned to leave. Hinata waved at them and said, "Tell me when you get home." She shut the front door and fell to her butt as soon as they vanished into the elevator. The whole experience was so overwhelming. If Neji had noticed Naruto on her bed, she was unsure of what he would have done. In relation to Naruto, she got up and walked to her bedroom, being careful to open the door silently because she knew it would creak. She was shocked to see Naruto still asleep when she turned on the lights. He did appear exhausted, now that she thought about it. The analog clock indicated 10 o'clock in the evening. She didn't want to wake him up, but she knew she had to do so to get home to his wife. She sighed and walked over to give the young man a gentle prod. She called out, "Naruto," to him. "Naruto," she said, giving him a slight shove. Nothing has changed. Naruto woke up in his sleep and rolled to her side of the bed just as Hinata was starting to panic. At the sight of his bare chest, she bit her lip. "Naruto," she called, climbing on the bed and shaking her head. When Hinata held him down, the man nearly leapt out of the bed as his eyes opened. "I'm sorry for screaming your name, but you wouldn't wake up." After stroking his jet black hair with his fingers, he reclined on the plush bed. His gaze strayed to Hinata and then to the analog clock while he held his chest. 10:02 p.m. "You didn't get any sleep last night." Sleep started to sound strange. He couldn't recall the last time he had slept well because he was either locked out of the room all the time and had to sleep on the sofa, or Sakura's incessant arguing made his night awful. "On and off," yawned he. "I had to sleep on the couch last night." "Why?" "Because I told her I didn't want to have a child with her, yet," Naruto murmured. "I feel foolish for even suggesting it in the first place, knowing our relationship was not good." Hinata muttered, "Oh," feeling ashamed of her feelings. His wife was the one. Those conversations were commonplace. Naruto looked at her and asked, "Are you okay?" She gave a nod. Are you going home now?" Naruto was aware that he should return home to his wife, but he was also aware of how the evening would unfold. They would argue back and forth, and if he was lucky, Sakura would try to hit him or throw something. After that, she would lock him out of the room and make him sleep on the couch once more. The words, "I don't want to," he said. "I already know what's going to happen if I do." Hinata exclaimed, "You can stay here." With too much enthusiasm, she bit her lower lip in nervous laughter and turned her head away. "If you want to." "I want to." His face was as red as hers, and Hinata looked down at him. "If you don't mind," she said as she hurriedly got out of bed. I'm going to take a shower." When she dashed into the restroom, Naruto didn't even notice her. He was anxious because she moved so quickly. He had never in his life slept in a house belonging to a woman other than Sakura, or laid in a bed belonging to a woman other than his mother or wife. In all honesty, he should have felt uncomfortable or guilty about all of these things, but he didn't. Holding Hinata and sleeping soundly was all he wanted. When he heard the shower turn on, he looked toward the door. He might decide to skip work tomorrow. Wiping the steam from the window, Naruto gazed at himself in the foggy mirror. Hinata was waiting for him just behind those doors. None of them gave it much thought, but he showered. He had nothing on, no clothes, no boxers. He was left naked after she had washed his clothes 20 minutes prior, and her shirts most definitely wouldn't fit him. He had never been so flushed. From behind the door, Hinata said, "Naruto, maybe you can wear this." Her hand held a long silk dress, and Naruto's eyes widened as he noticed the steam emanating from the bathroom through the slightly open door. "This one is a little big on me, so you should try it on." With trepidation, he grasped the nightgown and said, "Thank you," before shutting the door. He sighed as he examined the nightgown. He told himself, it was last minute, Naruto. When he looked in the mirror, his right eye twitched. Hinata could have seen his nuts if he had leaned over. He couldn't possibly wear this. Did it fit, Naruto? "Hinata, I can't wear this. I just can't." "I'm sure it isn't bad," acknowledged Hinata. "Let me see it." Naruto sighed and opened the door, causing Hinata's eyes to widen upon seeing him. She turned around quickly, her body trembling and her cheeks puffing out. When Naruto attempted to contain her laughter, her right eye twitched. In between, she laughed and said, Naruto, you look good in white. Hinata, exclaimed Naruto, I can't wear this. She smiled and said, your clothes are in the dryer now, so give it half an hour. Oddly, Naruto walked to the bedroom with his head hung low. His movements were limited by the tightness of the nightgown. Hinata began to sympathize with the young man and murmured, if you don't want to wear it, you can take it off. I don't have a problem if you want to. Do you want to sleep naked? Even though he was used to it, the thought of Hinata being by his side made him nervous. When he saw her in her smooth satin nightgown that embraced her body, he found it difficult to get rid of his erection. Her breast would overflow with a single shock. I'm fine, he said, trembling. Let's go to bed. With their eyes fixed on the ceiling, the two lay down beside each other. Perhaps because their tongues were too heavy to speak, neither of them spoke. Instead, they were flustered, embarrassed, and anxious about the possible consequences of moving even slightly. Naruto was a handsome guy. Hinata was a pretty woman. It was obvious from the ideas that ran through their heads at night. It would be naive of them to deny their attraction to each other. They were both aware that it would be an enormous step that could not be stopped. Their sins would have been sealed with that. The cold air was making it difficult for Naruto to think of anything to stop this erection from slowly rising, so he squeezed his eyes tightly. When Hinata laid her head on his chest, he nearly gasped. I'm glad I'm not the only one nervous. Naruto muttered, I always get nervous when I'm around you. Why? Because you make me want to do things I wouldn't do. He responded, when I'm with you, I don't want to mess up in front of you, and no matter how hard I try to play it cool, you do something to me. Hinata gave him the silk gown and traced a circle with her fingers. He shuddered as he felt the outline of her breast pressed against him. He couldn't remember when he'd slept with Sakura. He might not feel like a lustful adolescent getting their first hard-on if they did. Even now, you force me to do things I wouldn't do myself, she said, biting her lower lip. When Naruto clapped his hands, the lights came on. That was unexpected, and Hinata's eyes widened. Naruto wasn't sure what made him do that, but he wasn't sure if he could have restrained these cravings if she had kept talking like that. Are you okay, Naruto? She leaned up to ask herself. Her breast gushed out of the silky gown as she did so, and Naruto's eyes widened. He muttered, fuck, as the erection he was attempting to manage took over. Hinata turned away from Naruto and quickly covered herself. She felt so ashamed that her whole body turned strawberry red. She squeaked, I'm sorry. Out. I shouldn't have worn this gown. Despite his inexperience, Naruto put his hand on Hinata's shoulder. He tried to ignore his erection as he muttered, it's fine, Hinata. You look beautiful. Hinata was obviously embarrassed by the experience. He remarked, see, I'm embarrassed too. She noticed Naruto's face was flushed when she glanced over her shoulder. He said, I'm sorry I acted so abruptly. When you say certain things, my body reacts on its own. Hinata turned around, her bust still visible to him, after gaining confidence. For the second time that evening, Naruto's gaze moved from her face to her neck and finally landed on her chest. He could tell it was creamy and that they were very heavy. She had solid nipples that were a peachy pink color. They would appear awful. Naruto laughed and asked, are you testing me? Hinata looked at him and shook her head. Why, you said I look beautiful. He gazed longingly into her eyes and said, you do. You always do. She pulled at the thin straps of the nightgown he was wearing with shaky fingers. You can take it off, and I'll take off mine. Taking the lump in his throat, Naruto swallowed it. Was this the next step he was prepared for? He followed her instructions after noticing the expression in her eyes and his own self-centered impulses. Hinata admired the tattoo that was located directly in the middle of Naruto's bare stomach. If the blankets had been any lower, she would have seen his hardened member and blonde pubic area. Hinata's enormous breast, which rested on her chest, was another feature of her body that Naruto was admiring. Her perky peachy nipples were calling out to him, and he liked the way they looked at him. He didn't intend to go this far with her when he promised to spend time with her during his lunch today, but here he was, about to finish his meal. He hadn't even considered Sakura. Hinata's perky nipples were the only thing that beckoned to him. When Hinata saw the hungry expression in Naruto's eyes, she was proud that she had managed to make a man she looked up to look at her like that. He would always have that expression when staring at her because it inspired her to take better care of her body. When she said, you can touch them if you want to, she was courageous. Their spines tingled when Naruto's fingers shook and touched her hard knob. Hinata moaned softly as he gave her left nipple a light squeeze. It had been so long. Perhaps he ought to have stopped, but he was either unable to do so or simply did not want to. When Naruto ate her nipple and started sucking on it, Hinata let out a loud gasp. As Naruto ravaged her nipple with his tongue, she squirmed around the bed in excitement, tingling all over. When he looked at her other nipple, her back arched. She managed to yell, "And Naruto," at him. He used his free hand to squeeze her freshly violated nipple with his mouth. To elicit a response from her, he turned and twisted them. Hinata could sense that she was becoming more and more damp. She attempted to fondle herself in private by sliding her hand down to her private area, but Naruto saw what she was doing. Pinning her hands above her head, he took hold of them. "Let me." When Naruto spread her legs wide and started to eat every inch of her private space, Hinata thought she saw the gates of heaven. He let his tongue run loose and licked everything it came across. When she buried his face as deep inside her as possible, her hold on his hair became more firm. He grabbed her clit and sucked on it like he did her breast, causing her to groan in a way she had never done before. She was breathing shallowly and her legs were trembling. The fact that Naruto kissed her spot every few seconds was what finally broke her. Naruto stuck his tongue in and out of Hinata, causing her body to go haywire. He kept eating his food while holding her in place when she attempted to move away from him. "Naruto," she groaned loudly, sensing that she was about to let go. Please," she pleaded, keeping her hips raised. Hinata's most private space spilled between her legs and bed linens, and Naruto looked down. It was so lovely. She still felt herself coming, and her legs shook as she struggled to breathe. His legs were still shaking, but he was completely upright, listening to her curse and groan out his name. He wanted to value her body even more after witnessing her in this state of vulnerability. Hinata would occasionally jolt, but eventually her body calmed down. She felt like exploding when she looked into Naruto's eyes. He desired more. He craved her. She was prepared to give it to him because he wanted her. In order for Naruto to see how prepared she was for him, Hinata spread her legs apart. She became agitated because the top of his head was now dripping. A switch was flipped in her when she saw him standing there, erect and ready to conquer. Hovering over her, Naruto's lust-filled eyes remained dark. Compared to the previous Naruto, this one was entirely different. Was this how his wife felt, too? Or was she alone? When Naruto kissed Hinata's full lips, she felt as though she was on cloud 9. He inserted his tongue into her open mouth, and the two tongues battled until he prevailed. Gazing into her eyes, Naruto drew back and entwined his fingers with hers. He had an expression on his face, and she wondered if he was thinking because he didn't move. He kissed her neck and asked, "Do you have a condom?" She muttered, "I should have some in the drawer." Naruto opened the drawer, saw the condom pack, and then fixed Hinata with his gaze. She blurted out, "That's when I was dating Kiba," with a flushed face. He laughed. "I didn't say anything," he said. As he kissed her forehead, he said, "It's okay." After putting the condom on, Naruto positioned himself. He said to her, "If you want to stop at any time, let me know." Quit. If only he were aware of her true potential as a horndog. According to what Kiba always told her, Hinata had a voracious appetite for a starved man despite her innocent appearance. Perhaps he was unable to satisfy her in the manner she desired, or perhaps she simply had a high sex drive. When Naruto started pressing himself against her, she nodded her head and inhaled deeply. The sensation of something other than her fingers entering her seemed to last forever. She started to split inside to adapt to his cock that had entered her as he continued to gently push himself into her. Naruto couldn't allow himself to arrive so soon since he was starting to see stars. As he slowly made his way deeper and deeper into her until he was unable to go any deeper, Hinata let out a sweet moan. Then all of a sudden they realized. After a moment of staring into each other's eyes, they knew they had made the deal. As Naruto crashed in and out of Hinata, the bed shifted. Since this had been coming for a while, he wasn't given any space to breathe. Until tonight, he would never know how she sounded, how tightly she clamped down on him, or how her insides felt. Only tonight did those never-ending fantasies feel realized. The real thing wasn't portrayed in those persistent fantasies. He tightened his hold on her waist and pushed in and out of her. She saw tiny black dots as Naruto repeatedly slammed into her, turning her creamy skin red. He followed her instructions after she repeatedly yelled at him to go faster and harder. He groaned loudly, "Oh fuck, Hinata," as he watched her breast move up and down with him. As he lifted her, Hinata put her arms around his neck. When he sat her on his dick, her body jerked. He was moving steadily forward. She made a mistake by staring into his blue eyes. Her lady part shivered and then burst over him. He continued to move in and out of her despite that. He whispered, "Hinata," into her ear. She gave a headshake. He had to say her name in this manner, but why? Her hands tightened around his neck as she squeezed her eyes shut. He laughed and asked, "Why are you shaking your head?" She groaned, "Because you're so dangerous." "Me? Dangerous?" He accelerated. "Tell me, how am I dangerous?" As she called out to him, her fingernails dug into his flesh. His groan was loud. I know, it's almost over," he said. He was being held by her walls, but he didn't want it to end this way. He kissed her and slipped out of her, whispering, "Lay on your stomach." Before slapping it, Naruto snatched a handful of Hinata's bare behind. Hinata squeaked as he struck it once more. He repeatedly struck it until it became a vivid red hue. It jiggled in a way that drove him insane. He gave the order, "Stick your ass up in the air." Hinata was forced to follow his every word after hearing his severe tone. As though she hadn't heard anything more from him, she glanced over her shoulder. When she saw that Naruto was looking straight at her moist temple, her eyes widened. She yelled, "Ah," as Naruto pressed his index finger against her. He examined his wet finger as though it were the most valuable item he had ever seen when he took it out. He looked at her, watching everything he did, and then he put his finger in his mouth to taste everything they had made. She never imagined that having sex with Naruto would turn out this way. This was unexpected. She had no idea how he would be. She adored it. Naruto pushed his face into her moist area while placing his hands on either side of her cheeks. As Naruto examined her a second time, she writhed and groaned all at once. Every time her legs gave out, he picked her back up, slapped her butt, and then devoured her as if his life depended on it. Hinata uttered the words, "You said it was almost over," in between breath. Smirking, he asked, "Did I?" As Naruto slammed into Hinata, she clung to the bed linens. While Naruto gave it his all, Hinata's groans made the bed squeak. This moment was all that mattered to her, regardless of whether the neighbors heard her. Then he grunted, "Hinata, oh fuck, I'm almost there." He sounded so angelic, but why? Hinata pressed closer to him, burying her head in her pillow to stifle her screams of pleasure. He lost control when he heard her muffled scream, and he also let go into the condom. Since he had not been intimate for a very long time, his breathing was labored. Because Hinata lacked the strength to move, she lay there until Naruto, exhausted, fell directly on top of her. He swiftly tied the end of the condom after removing it and set it on the nightstand. He was too exhausted to walk. He felt as though he was crushing the poor girl, so he said, "I'm sorry, Hinata." He turned to face her when he heard nothing. She was sound asleep. As the next day went by, Naruto embraced Hinata tightly. He had only slept a few hours, but she slept peacefully in his arms. Sakura usually got home around this time, so his body was accustomed to waking up early, but he would be lying if he claimed that was why he slept for a few hours. Now the guilt was setting in. While he was married to Sakura, he had sex with another woman. It might have been alright if they had only kissed, but that wasn't the case. He attempted to swallow the lump in his throat after having sex. He and Hinata had sex. Officially, he was now a cheater. While fucking Hinata, he didn't give Sakura a second thought, but now she's haunting him. He could only hear her say, "I knew you were a fucking cheater." If she found out. Hinata buried her head in his chest and stirred in his arms. He felt like a piece of shit and his heart skipped a beat when he felt her move. He was an absolute jerk. He followed Shikamaru's advice to end their relationship, but it did not work out. For what length of time could he conceal everything? Since Hinata was off for the remainder of the day, Naruto made the decision to stay at home with her. When he went to get his phone from the car while she was cleaning the kitchen, he was stunned to see hundreds of calls and texts from Sakura as well as Shikamaru, Kin, and Temari. "Sakura. How are you, Naruto? I haven't stopped calling you. That little bitch refused to let me into your office when I dropped by your place of employment. They're telling me you didn't come in today, but she said you were in a meeting. Shikamaru. Where is Naruto? You didn't come home last night, Sakura texted me. Are you all right? Temari. How are you doing, little brother? I got a call from Sakura asking if I saw you. Kin. Master. This is where your wife came to look for you. Someone must have told her they didn't see you today because I refused to let her into the office and told her you were in a meeting. She's so mad that you should give her a call. He thanked Kin briefly for informing him of the situation. She gave a heart-shaped response. After a single ring, Sakura yelled at him. His ears rang. Where the fuck are you? I've been calling you non-stop since last night. You're not at work, so where the fuck are you, Naruto? Shikamaru and Tamari didn't see you either, so better not say you were with them. She was threatening. I swear to God, if you were sleeping by another woman's house, I'm going to lose my shit. It was difficult for Naruto to find the right words to say. He was at another woman's house, yes, but he would never tell her that. Over the phone, she might even grab his neck. I'm fucking waiting. I apologize, Ka-san, he said to himself. After our little argument during lunchtime, I went to my parents' house. I've been here all night. He felt terrible about using his visit to his parents' house as a scapegoat, and there was an awkward silence between them. Why did that Kin girl lie and say you were in a meeting? I did go in briefly, but I just couldn't deal with it, so I left, he murmured. Am I not your wife? You are. So, why do I feel like you're not treating me like I am? You could have told me. She started crying. I was up all night worried about you. At least you could have called me to tell me. He listened to her shuffle around while resting his forehead against the wall. I know, I'm sorry, he said. Is it possible to feel worse than shit? I'm home today, so, please come home now. Her voice was pleading, but he was unable to do so. He didn't want to see Sakura's face, and Hinata was patiently waiting for him. He couldn't handle the guilt. Just give me some time. I'll be home tonight, he said. In an attempt to make up for his absence, he said, I'll pay for your day spa today. Just tell me how much it is, and I'll pay for it. She gave a sniff. See, can I get that dress I've been wanting? His heart sank deeper into his stomach as he said, yes, you have my credit card. Go ahead and buy it. He felt sick to his stomach. Okay, she said in a whisper. I love you. Naruto wanted to slam his phone against the wall, but instead he pinched the bridge of his nose. Before she could continue, he abruptly ended the call, saying, I love you too. Have a nice day. Hinata looked at Naruto as he quietly made his way inside the house. She could feel the awkwardness in the air around him. She took his hand and asked, Is everything okay, Naruto? As if to shake him out of his ruminative state. Hinata recognized the person when she glanced down at the buzzing phone in his hand. Are you upset because of last night? The words, I'm such a fucked up person, shook in his voice. Naruto put his phone down and said, I hate her so fucking much, yet I can't deny that I love her. She put me through a lot and accused me of things I didn't do, so why do I feel so bad? Gazing at Hinata, he remarked, she asked me to come home, and you know what I told her. She never had a chance to respond. I told her to give me some time, and I'll be home tonight. Her feelings came second to yours. I can't deny my feelings for you and how bad I want to be with you, Hinata. Do you now understand why I left you the way I did? His eyes glazed over. I didn't want to hurt you because I was being indecisive, and I couldn't do that to Sakura after the years we've gone through together. Hinata was aware that she had little to say to him. Was she sympathetic to the other woman? No. Was she cold and self-centered as a result? Perhaps. She could only live in the present, but perhaps karma would be repaid. She didn't see her feelings for Naruto changing anytime soon, and they only grew stronger. When she finally said, if you decide to leave me again, do it right. Don't you dare leave me the way you did. I want you to look me in my eyes, and tell me, Hinata, we should end this and stop all contact. Her eyes were so bold that Naruto was shocked. Hinata was able to express himself more effectively than he could. Sakura probably didn't think much of him as a man because of this. Maybe I am cold, or maybe my desires for you are so strong that I can't consider her feelings, but for you, I will. If you tell me now that you can't do this, I will leave. She choked up. The tears streamed down her flushed cheeks as she said, I'll never look back. When Naruto embraced Hinata, she wiped her eyes. His already fragile heart was further shattered by witnessing the misery he brought upon her. He would never have fallen in love with Sakura if he had known that he would eventually meet Hinata. He would have slipped into that cozy bakery after patiently waiting for the first snow to fall. He was cautioned by Shikamaru. He did. Naruto kissed her forehead and gave her a tight squeeze. He rocked her from side to side and said, I know. When Naruto kissed her cheek, she closed her eyes and said, "I can't. I won't leave you. This is my first time feeling this way about another woman. Please be patient with me." The flowers Naruto had given her were crushed when Sakura leapt directly into his arm as soon as the front door opened. "I miss you so much," she said, kissing him until he was completely covered. He said, "I miss you too," while carefully holding her. When Naruto said, "You're crushing the poor flowers," he laughed. The flowers couldn't matter to her. His safe return was all that mattered to her. The attempt by Sakura to smother him nearly caused him to fall backward. "I really did miss you," he said, meeting her gaze. He resisted her attempt to plant a kiss on his neck. "Why don't you put these in some vase while I look for a change of clothes?" Sakura leapt from him and grabbed the flowers out of his grasp. "I got some ramen from Ichiraku for you. I'll warm it up." Naruto said, "Thank you," and slipped into the bedroom. He took out his phone and sent Hinata a text. "Naruto, I've returned home. I will see you in the future. Hinata, even though I already miss you, I'm happy you're home." As Naruto read her message, his heart skipped a beat. Naruto, "Hinata, I already miss you. I do. I wish I was holding you at your side right now. Hinata, will you see me at the bakery tomorrow?" Naruto, "Oh, Hinata, good night. Hinata." Naruto, "Good night." Sakura grabbed hold of him while he was eating dinner, occasionally causing him to spill his food and drink. This went on until they were in bed together, and she didn't let up. He felt so alone, even though he was with her. All he could think about was Hinata and how lonely she must have been in bed by herself. "Naruto," yelled Sakura. She said, "It's been a long time since we've done anything," in an oblique manner. He proposed, "Why don't we spend some time together?" Sakura rubbed his hand and said, "But it's been so long." He couldn't possibly comply with Sakura's request. He and Hinata had some fun together not too long ago before he returned home. They had sex again because they were vulnerable and their emotions overcame them. For some reason, Sakura felt queasy. She was being rejected by Naruto. Did he no longer think she was attractive? Or did he? He stared into Sakura's green eyes as she grabbed his hands. "I shouldn't have to beg." "Beg," he nearly snorted. When he came crawling to her, didn't she refuse to have sex? Why was he unable to say what she was allowed to say? Perhaps, in contrast to him, she was as strong as Hinata in expressing her emotions. He gave Sakura a quick glance before letting out a quiet sigh. Could there be a term for feeling worse than scum? Sakura sniffed Naruto's scent and nestled into his chest. She felt secure in his arms right now. She had no idea why she had waited so long, but Naruto consistently demonstrated his sexual prowess. Perhaps he was relieved that he had put her in positions she had never been in before. It wasn't like that. Naruto was repulsed. Disgust was an understatement, to be sure. As ridiculous as it sounds, he believed that by having sex with Sakura, he had betrayed Hinata. The man was in over his head now, but perhaps this was getting to be too much for him. How was he going to please two households? Naruto muttered, "Bread, sugar, coffee," as he perused the list of things Sakura had requested he get. "I should probably get some fruits. Didn't we have a stock load of coffee?" he murmured. "When did you dye your hair, Mr. Namikaze?" Naruto turned to face the tall, attractive figure who was startlingly staring at him. "Yeah, I did. You like it?" he asked, laughing and posing. "Drive Uchiha," he smiled after recognizing the man. "I wouldn't have recognized you if I hadn't seen your eyes." He was unable to contain his laughter. "At least that's one thing that didn't change about me, huh?" Sakura knew without his having to say anything. He laughed and said, "Woman. We live to please them, right? Although I prefer you as a blonde, black looks good on you." Naruto chuckled and remarked, "Well, hearing you say that makes me believe that." As he eyed the man's trolley, he inquired, "What's your wife cooking for dinner tonight?" "Well, I'm going to be cooking a nice steak dinner with garlic mashed potatoes," Sasuke said, reaching up to the top shelf for some salt. "No, Mrs.?" asked Naruto startlingly. When Sasuke saw Naruto's shocked expression, he burst out laughing. "I'm not a committed kind of guy, if you know what I mean." He remarked, "You do have the looks. I don't have time to be tied down, so I don't see how you do it," Sasuke replied with a sigh. "There are a lot of beautiful women out here, so I can't be bothered with one." Naruto chuckled. He couldn't really blame him, though. He didn't appear to be attached to anyone, and he wasn't bound. He was free to do as he pleased. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time, Naruto replied. He said, please take care, with a slight bow. With a smile, Sasuke remarked, I feel like we'll cross paths again. Take it easy, Mr. Namikaze. She had been going to the bakery when Ino was working ever since she met his wife. She would typically enter just before closing and speak with her and Ino. Perhaps Karma was letting Hinata know that it was coming after her, but she was unsure. They were seated and munching on some leftover mini cookies. Sakura inquired, are you still feeling nauseous? Ino put down the cookie, sighed, and nodded her head. I'm not even 2 months yet, so why do I feel this way? I can't stand to smell my favorite perfume anymore. It'll get better. Make sure you're taking the pills your doctor prescribed. Ino crossed her arms and let out a loud groan. I'll be fine. While munching on the chocolate chip cookie, Hinata glanced back and forth between Sakura and Ino. Well, at least be happy you're able to experience being pregnant, Sakura gasped. I won't ever get to know the feeling. With surprise, Ino asked, is he still rejecting the idea? Sakura scowled and said, yes. Sometimes I ask myself why I'm even with him. Naruto has been acting suspicious. Ino could hear the accusation coming and rolled her eyes. Sakura bellowed, I'm serious. And gave Ino a fierce look. A few days ago, I went into the bathroom while he was drying off, and I saw these scratch marks on his back. Sakura glanced at Hinata as she nearly choked on her cookie. Exactly, Hinata. They looked fresh. Ino nearly sneered, so, you're saying he had sex with someone else, and they did it? Sakura folded her arms and said, why don't you believe me, Ino? A woman's intuition is never wrong. Because you've been saying that ever since you two got together. We followed him the entire day, and he didn't do anything. Ino raised her arms in the air. Hinata now comprehended all of Naruto's topics. If she had consistently accused him of doing this, why would he still marry her? It sounded like so much work just to listen to them back and forth. Sakura bit her lip and chewed. He isn't the same, she muttered at last. I would think so, Sakura. Ino's eyes rolled. She was starting to lose patience with her best friend, and these new pregnancy hormones were making it worse. You made him dye his hair black. You accuse him every chance you get, and you treat him like shit, she said. Sakura's eyes began to well up with tears, which caused Ino to sigh. All I'm saying is you need to treat him with respect, Sakura. Naruto loves you, you know this. You need to go to therapy to find out why you're this way. It isn't healthy. Mumbling, I know, she said. Ino asked, am I being too harsh, Hinata? No, she said quietly. I'm trying, said Sakura. She calmed down and said, I do love him, but I really was looking forward to having children with him, and now that'll never happen. My parents don't like him. We've been together for so long. Your parents don't like him because he doesn't fit their ideology, Ino said. And from the looks of it, he doesn't fit yours. Sakura yelled, why would you say such a thing? Because you wouldn't treat him this way or agree with half the things your mom says about him. For the remainder of the night, Sakura said nothing. She kept saying to herself that Ino was mistaken. Please know that I would sacrifice myself for you. He leaned back in the black leather chair and watched the blue sky turn to black as he looked out his office window. Lightning bolts flashed ominously throughout the sky as a rumble tore through it. He swayed back and forth, and the chair squeaked in response. Naruto. He tried to concentrate on something other than her, so he closed his eyes. A wave of memories washed ashore after he received a photo memory on his phone not too long ago. It seems like they were just teenagers yesterday, having fun, taking pictures, and not giving a damn about what the future held. Though he couldn't deny Sakura's importance in his life, all those years were starting to feel like a waste. He gazed at the picture of them sitting atop the grassy hill and sighed. He had vivid memories of this day. Sakura resisted every last boy who tried to play tricks on him. Even though she wasn't his at the time, he felt proud of himself for protecting her, and his friends called him a knight in shining armor. He never wanted to be apart from Sakura because she meant the world to him. What was life without her? He had held that belief for a while, but he repeatedly chose to ignore the warnings that seemed to be coming from the world. Perhaps she was unaware, but he was willing to die for her because he loved her so much. If she had needed a heart, he would have given it to her without hesitation. For her, he would have taken a bullet. He would have prioritized her happiness over his own, but he gradually came to the realization that this was not feasible. He felt as though he had lost a piece of his identity in the last few months, and meeting Hinata stoked his desire to reclaim it. He might have been self-centered to drag two women along, but it was difficult to make up his mind. His constant thought was, what if? Until Sakura brought up a divorce, he had never felt so shaken. Why did he care after all she had done? What used to frighten him about it? He couldn't possibly tell Shikamaru what he did, even though he would have been his go-to man. His best friend warned him to choose between the two, so it would likely break his heart to see him disappointed. He made it seem so simple. With another sigh, he picked up his phone from the table and responded to Sakura's FaceTime video. Naruto, Sakura exclaimed with a broad smile. Are you off? Naruto asked with a smile. You look lovely today. Sakura couldn't contain her laughter. She sighed, really, I look like shit, saying. It's raining outside, so you better drive safely. There are a lot of crazy people out there. I'm going to leave shortly. I'm just waiting for the rain to die down. Sakura stuck her lips out and asked, do you mind doing me a favor? Before he nodded, a slight smile appeared on his face. Ino works at a bakery store called Lee's Home Bakery downtown. She has some fresh bread for me. Can you pick it up, please? As soon as Hinata sprang to mind, Naruto's heart skipped a beat. Oh, I didn't know Ino worked there. I can do that for you. Thank you. It was raining too hard, but I'm craving some milk bread. She was giggling. Drive safely. I will. Naruto. Yes, I love you. He said, love you too. I'll see you when I get home, and then hung up. He put the phone down and gazed up at the sky, which was starting to calm down. He was thrilled to see Hinata's face for some reason. He entered the bakery and was greeted by the aroma of ground coffee. While waiting for the rain to stop, a few people sat down to talk and sip coffee. When he saw Ino giving a customer her change, he grinned. Hey, Ino. He grinned at him. He shifted his gaze back and forth, trying to find the short girl he had grown fond of. Naruto, exclaimed Ino. He walked over to the counter and took a seat. I don't think I've ever seen you come to my workplace. Naruto sat down on the stool and said, to be honest, I didn't know you worked here until Sakura told me. Ino's cheeks puffed out. Every time we hang out, I tell you. She exclaimed, giving him a playful blow. You're just like Sai. You don't listen to me. Well, you and Sakura can be all over the place. 1 second, you're talking about nails, and the next, you're talking about food. It's hard to keep up, he said. Ino grinned and said, you're just being dramatic. She couldn't help but sigh to herself as she examined his hair. How's Tamari doing? Shikamaru says she is doing fine. It's been a while since I've seen them. After biting her lip, Ino nodded. Given the recent pregnancy announcement, she assumed Naruto was ignoring them. He has never mentioned it to them to this day, and Sakura was the only reason she was aware of it. She prayed that he was getting help for his mental health, but she wasn't upset because it was a personal matter. She knew Naruto was always talking about having a child, so when Sakura told her, it broke her heart. Oh, would you like some coffee? Bread? He gave a headshake. No, thank you. Ino, where do you want these? Naruto felt his breath taken away when he saw Hinata come in from behind. When Hinata saw the blonde man sitting down, her eyes grew wide. He nearly laughed when he noticed a patch of white flour on her tiny nose. He knew why she hadn't replied when he texted her earlier to let her know he was coming. Ino said, oh, I can take these, and took the milk bread bags from Hinata. These are for Sakura, she said as she set them down in front of Naruto, who remained motionless throughout. When Ino turned to face him, she saw that his gaze was fixed on Hinata, who was standing in the rear. Ino said, ah, Hinata, this is Sakura's husband, Naruto, as he turned to look at her. I've met Hinata a few times before, Naruto grinned. This is such a small world. Ino remarked, you've two met before. With surprise. The head of Naruto bobbed up and down. I've come here a few times. I didn't know you worked here until Sakura told me. Hinata gave a head nod. She said, he comes here from time to time. She whispered to Ino, I had no idea this was the Naruto you two were discussing. While cleaning the counter, Ino hummed, ha. It really is a small world. It is, Naruto remarked, glancing at Hinata as Ino bowed his head. Hinata said, I'm going to clean up in the back, with a small bow. It was a pleasure to meet you, Naruto. Likewise, Hinata, Naruto remarked as he observed the small girl hastily making her way to the rear. Fortunately, she had gotten the hint. Naruto inquired worriedly, Sakura mentioned you were feeling unwell. Are you still feeling nauseous? The medication is helping me, but I just want to get back to wearing my favorite perfume. She replied. Naruto grinned broadly. Sai may be weird, but I know he's excited. As Ino saw the sincere joy in Naruto's eyes, her heart began to ache. He said, I know Sakura told you, as he peered down at the pale wooden top. Doesn't it hurt you? Naruto prodded the soft loaf of bread and remarked, I'm slowly getting used to the idea of not having any. You know my father is a therapist. If you ever need someone to talk to, he'll be the person to help you. Yeah, he muttered. Naruto grinned and said, I'll be fine. Thank you for your concern, Ino. He ascended slowly until Ino laid her hand over his. I should be on my way now, he said. Huh. Do you still love Sakura? Naruto was taken aback by Ino's question. Although he was aware that Sakura had disparaged him, Ino had never directly asked him such a private question. She sighed, shook her head, and released his hand. I'm sorry to ask you that question, but Sakura is just a little stressed lately. I'm pretty sure she doesn't mean to give you such a hard time. A difficult period would be an understatement. If only half of it was known by her. He could already tell who it was when he felt the phone vibrate in his pocket. He laughed, but Ino could tell it was serious. I'll get going now before Sakura has a fit, he said. I'll talk to you later, Naruto. Naruto left the cafe after bowing respectfully. Since she was still unable to understand Sakura's motivations for acting in this manner toward Naruto, Ino could only shake her head. Naruto had never appeared to be dishonest in all the years they had known one another. There was a limit to how much one could take, but she didn't think he had the courage to do it. Naruto felt a hand tug on his shirt sleeve just as he was ready to head to his car. His mouth opened into a smile as he glanced over his wide shoulder and saw her. When Hinata saw the look he had given her, her heart began to race. I just saw your text, she muttered as she swayed on her heels. He hovered over her and said, I figured you were busy. He gently brushed the flour from her cheek and said, you always have some sort of flour on you, Hinata. Naruto leaned over to give her a kiss after they gazed into each other's eyes with longing. Hinata pushed out the bottom of her lip after taking his hands in hers. What's the matter? She knew she was asking for too much, but it felt lonely without him. Can't you spend the night with me? She asked. Sakura isn't working the night shift, Naruto shot back, but, as he saw how depressed she had grown. Hinata's eyes widened in amazement at the news. Earlier today, I was informed I would be going out of town for a week for a business meeting in Tokyo, she said. I was going to ask if you would like to join me so we can spend more time together. Hinata nodded her head without hesitation. This isn't going to affect your school or work, right? As she shook her head, she said, No, I can go. Just let me know the dates. Given the short notice, Naruto expected her to decline, but he was glad he wouldn't be spending his time in Tokyo by himself. Even though it wasn't his first time traveling alone for work, he still felt sad being away from Sakura during those times. But if the situation had persisted, he would have been glad to leave his wife if he hadn't met Hinata. He grinned excitedly and said, I'll text you the specifics when I leave in 2 weeks. All expenses paid. Hinata would have done a backflip if she was capable of it. Rather, she took him in her arms, absorbing his aroma. She felt happy and warm just being around the man. Some of the people who passed by would look at the two from time to time. Playfully, Naruto questioned, Are you trying to get me in trouble? He put his arms around her and gave her a tight squeeze. Hinata, he whispered, you make me so happy, go on now. I don't want Ino to question where you went off to. Hinata drew away and gave him a final look before grudgingly walking away. She stood by the back door and said, You drive safely and let me know when you reach home. He bowed, always. As she entered the dimly lit apartment, the aroma of cinnamon enveloped her. She hurriedly kicked off her shoes, shut the door behind her, and switched on the kitchen light. She had recently, much to her distaste, hitched a ride with Kiba because the boy wanted to speak with her. His treatment of Naruto was still annoying, but maybe he had noticed something that neither of them had. She let out a dreamy sigh as she considered Naruto, the man with the blonde hair. Naruto was not someone Sakura deserved. He seemed to always put the needs of others before his own, and he was sweet and kind. He was straightforward and approachable. It wouldn't be shocking if he had a large number of friends or even admirers who showed off around him. She nearly gave a coo. In high school, she always hoped to be that kind of person. She never felt alone, even when dating Kiba and other people, and it wasn't bad to come home to an empty apartment. That was different now. It was quiet in the small, comfortable apartment, and she suddenly realized that she was by herself. When Naruto visited, he usually sat on the bar stool or sofa and worked, chatted with her, watched TV while she prepared food, or made something sweet. She always pondered what life would be like if they shared a home. The words, "I miss him," she muttered. She considered calling him over, but her bottom lip flushed. She was aware that he had said Sakura didn't work nights. Nevertheless, she wanted to be with him because she was feeling especially lonely for some reason. Maybe if I hear his voice, I won't feel so lonely. She pulled out her phone, clicked on his name, and gazed at his contact details. She pressed the phone icon with her thumb hovering over it. Abruptly, she ended the call. Imagine Naruto not having his phone with him. She was careful not to put him in any trouble. Sakura observed Naruto moving back and forth in the kitchen while they were making dinner. Cooking in his work clothes would make him look dapper. She said as she heard a buzz and glanced down at the marble countertop. He was still concentrating on cooking when he looked at Naruto, not realizing that his phone had vibrated. The analog clock on the wall, which read 10 p.m., caught her attention. Who in the world could be reaching out to Naruto right now? When she picked up the phone, she noticed that HH had missed a call. HH, she asked, entering the phone's password, only to be shocked to learn that she was mistaken. How could that have happened? Naruto never changed the password on his phone. Every time she entered her birthdate, his, and their anniversary, it informed her that she was mistaken, until the phone went out for 5 minutes. That made her uncomfortable. Naruto, muttered Sakura. The man remained silent. Naruto, yes. Sakura held up his phone in front of him as he glanced over his shoulder. What? He arched a small eyebrow. She was shocked by that. What do you mean what? After shutting off the stove, Naruto went over to Sakura. His heart was pounding rapidly with every step, praying Hinata hadn't conveyed a clear message. Disabled for 4 minutes. He sighed and asked, why did you disable my phone? Why is your password different? Who is this HH person calling you at 10 in the night? Naruto took the phone from her and sighed. The fact that he sounded so convincing surprised Naruto. HH is someone I met at the gym. We usually work out, but I forgot to tell him, he said. Oh, complained Sakura. When did you start going back to the gym? Why did you change your password? Naruto muttered. I thought we were past that stage, and went back to the stove. I don't see why you need to change your password. And I don't see why you have to go through my phone. What's yours is mine, Sakura sighed, I'm your wife. He rolled his eyes in response. Then show me your phone, he said. Sakura's eyes narrowed. I'm not the one hiding secrets. Naruto turned around and crossed his arms. Then show me your phone, he said. Why should I? He arched an eyebrow and asked, then why should I? When he said, food is ready, do you want something to eat? Once more, she had that instinct, but no matter how many times she followed it, it turned out to be incorrect. She had never seen any incriminating text messages or caught Naruto cheating. Before him, she had dated a lot of guys, but she wasn't as controlling around them as she was around Naruto. It was fantastic when she and Naruto met. It was easy for them to go from being friends to boyfriend and girlfriend because they had known each other for a long time. Apart from her parents' incessant comments, everything was still going well after a year of dating. The fact that Naruto was unfazed by it was like, Naruto. But one day, while she and Ino were eating in the cafeteria, she heard a female student sobbing to a friend about her boyfriend cheating on her. She had developed a covert obsession with the reasons why men cheat ever since that day. It was the subject of numerous posts, articles, and discussion boards. A lot of women and girls share their stories, feelings, and gut feelings. She then started evaluating herself against the other female students, recognizing that she was not as attractive or curvaceous as they were. She was completely different from the girls who spent time with Naruto. The girls were beautiful, soft-spoken, girly, and busty, but she was loud, boisterous, and unladylike. She soon heard them discussing her and the reasons Naruto would never date someone like her. His confessions were numerous, and they were all exquisite. He must have done something with them, surely. He hooking up with them couldn't be a rumor, could it? No, she muttered. I'm not hungry anymore, she said, almost crying. When Naruto took out his cell phone, he saw Hinata's text message. HH. Naruto, I apologize. I shouldn't have given you such a late call. It was odd that Hinata had called him. Perhaps there was a problem. Naruto. I was preparing food. Is everything alright? HH. I'm feeling lonely, and I just wanted to hear your voice. I'm going to bed, muttered Sakura. I think I'm going to go to the gym after all. I'll put away the food when I come back. Sakura shed a single tear, which landed on the counter. He hurried into their bedroom to get ready to go to the gym without giving her a glance. Sakura felt sick to her stomach. He wasn't usually like this. He didn't even lose his temper. He did not retort. He wasn't Naruto. The only thing Sakura could do was watch her husband go without checking on her. When Hinata heard a single knock, she hurried to the door. She swung the door open and embraced the man, who staggered a little, without peering through the peephole. Hinata, exclaimed Naruto. He scowled and said, I hope you look to see if it was me. What if I was some killer? Half listening to his words, she buried her head in her chest. Softly, Naruto questioned, why are you like this? He drew her into a close hug. We just saw each other this afternoon. I don't know why, but I missed you so much. Picking her up and carrying her into the living room, Naruto grinned. I'm here now, he made a smile. Did you eat anything yet? Hinata gave a headshake. I'm not a good cook like you, Hinata, but I think I've earned a few stars with my cooking. Naruto exclaimed, I'll make you the best omelet over rice you've ever had. Hinata nodded, her eyes widening. She was eager to try Naruto's food since it would be her first time. There were so many surprises in him. Hinata watched Naruto with excitement, swinging her short legs from the barstool like a child waiting impatiently. She was put in a sort of trance by the way his body moved as he moved back and forth. He would appear very manly. Hinata saw his phone ring while he was preparing food. Hinata said, I think someone is texting you, Naruto. It's probably Sakura, Naruto stated. Oh, she said, remaining silent. He glanced over his shoulder and asked, what did she say? She muttered, I didn't read your message. You can go ahead and look. It's not like I'm hiding anything from you. Hinata was hesitant to answer the phone, but any hesitation was allayed by Naruto's comforting expression. She was unable to see the entire message. I can only read half of the message. Password is your birthday. His words caused Hinata's face to heat up. Despite the fact that it was a straightforward password, she somehow fell in love with him again. Hinata squeaked, are you sure this is okay? It's fine. Like I said, I'm not hiding anything from you, and I don't want you to feel you can't trust me. But I do trust you, asserted Hinata hastily. Naruto turned to her and asked, why? How do you know everything I'm telling you is the truth? Sakura didn't believe me. She murmured, because of the look in your eyes. I know it sounds cliché, but the look you show me every time makes me trust you. Naruto nearly started crying when he heard that. He had hoped for years that Sakura would realize he wasn't who she claimed he was. He never played around or cheated on any girl. As of right now, he hasn't done anything that the rumors claim he did. That means a lot to me, Hinata, he said with a grin. If only she realized how much she genuinely brought him joy. After selecting Sakura's text message and scanning it, Hinata read it out loud. Sakura, how can you leave without calling to see how I, your wife, am doing, Naruto? We committed ourselves to each other. Does the gym matter? Your mother was probably correct about you and us, so shouldn't I be your top priority? I apologize for not being the wife you desire. When Hinata was done, she turned to face Naruto, and when she heard him laugh, her eyes widened. With a bitter tone, he said, you should scroll up, Hinata, scroll up to see the years and years of messages saying the same thing. I don't even know when it started, but her constant accusations became more and more. I didn't do anything she said I did, but it doesn't matter since I'm a cheater now. He placed the omelet on top of the boiling rice that was white. I don't ever want you to think I'm this big cheater she paints me to be. You can look at my other messages, my social media. He softened his tone. He put the plate in front of her and said, you are the only person I have ever cheated on. I'm thinking of divorcing Sakura. Hinata's mouth parted just a little. And Naruto, are you sure? He muttered, I've been looking into it. This morning, I thought about my relationship with her and how I was always willing to die if it meant protecting her. I was so afraid when she mentioned a divorce that I made her do anything she wanted to me, but now a part of me doesn't care. If she finds out I'm cheating, I don't care. The only person I care about is you. I don't want you to get hurt. This world can be so cruel, he said. To which Hinata replied, I don't care what people say. But I do, scowled Naruto. Why, are you ashamed of me? Seriously, Hinata, look at you, he said, giving her a sympathetic look. How could I ever be ashamed of a beautiful woman like you? You have dreams of opening your own bakery. People talk. Rumors ruin reputations. If those rumors circulate, it can ruin you and everything you worked for. As Hinata listened to Naruto talk, she was compelled to keep quiet. Everything he was saying was true, of course, but her vision was blurred by her growing love for him. I know, but I just want to be with you. He stroked her cheek and gazed lovingly into her eyes, saying, I know. I know. In 2 weeks, we'll be together, and I'll do anything you want. Her large lavender eyes were dazzling. Anything. Naruto nodded despite not liking the look he was receiving for some reason. Yes, anything. Hinata was giddy with anticipation over his consent in the upcoming journey. A tiny smile came to her lips as she picked up the spoon. She glanced at her image on the spoon and said, I know you won't ever say anything to hurt me, Naruto. Thank you. When I came home tonight, everything was fine until I realized how lonely I am. I've never felt this way, even when I dated other men, but when you're not here, I feel very lonely. Almost as if a part of me is missing. She breathed a sigh of relief. When I think about you, I feel like we were destined to be together, and nothing can stop it. I know it sounds crazy, but I feel like we've met many times before in a different life. With every word, Naruto's heart skipped a beat. Maybe he wasn't insane for having the same thoughts. Perhaps it was fate that he and Sakura were not meant to be together. Perhaps Hinata was his true love, and destiny was attempting to bring them together. He ruffled her head and said, I feel the same way, Hinata. Why don't you eat some food so I can put you to sleep? Hinata moaned and took a bite out of the rice omelette without thinking twice. It was a simple dish, but the man she had admired had prepared it just for her. When I get my own bakery, I'm going to add this to my menu. Naruto's special omelette over rice. Naruto chuckled heartily. I can't wait to see it. Sakura fixed her gaze on the light emanating from the restroom door. A few minutes prior, Naruto had sneaked in and proceeded directly to the restroom without first making sure she was still conscious. Then she heard the sound of the shower. I thought that was normal. It was only natural for him to take a shower after working out. She looked at the clock on her bedside table and squeezed her eyes when she saw the time. 1 a.m. After 2 weeks, Sakura didn't understand why everything was so different, and their relationship was gradually failing. Naruto arrived home very late and gradually stopped touching her. When she asked him where he was, he would sometimes respond that he was at the gym, and other times he would remain silent. He would use his phone quite a bit, and at night he would get out of their cozy bed to use the restroom, with his phone. She was shocked to hear this when she told Ino. Sakura usually made the same accusation, but this time it was different. Naruto had different habits. Those were unquestionably an indication that something was wrong with their relationship. See what you did. You caused this, was what she wanted to say to Sakura, but it was not the right moment. Sakura appeared to be unhappy. One day, Sakura murmured, I think he's going to divorce me. After everything I've done for him, he's going to leave me. Ino stroked Sakura's back and said, come on, Sakura. You don't know that. Naruto loves you. If he loved me, why did he just tell me about his business trip the other day? I could have requested the week off in advance so we could go together. Does he usually go on a business trip? She admitted to herself, every once in a while. He used to invite me, but I didn't want to go. But still, he could have taken the initiative to ask me. Ino patted her and remarked, well, it probably slipped his mind. Hey, why don't we have a girls' night? I can stay with you for the week, so you won't be alone. Shouting, that sounds nice, Sakura said. She noticed that the adorable girl was nowhere to be seen and asked once, where's Hinata? She isn't in today. You two usually work together. Did she get fired? No, Hinata is getting ready for a trip, so she won't be here for a week. Ino said. To start a conversation, Ino said, oh, do you know Naruto knows Hinata? She seemed content, but she didn't specify where she was going. She should have known better, but it wasn't to stoke the flames. Oh, really? Ino said, yeah, without looking into Sakura's eyes. With a nervous laugh, she said, it's a small world, huh? Why didn't she tell me she knew my husband? I said things about him in her presence. Ino whimpered. Oh, come on, Sakura, she didn't know it was that Naruto you were talking about. Sakura looked at her. With a sharp tone, she asked, who else is Naruto in Konoha, Ino? Have you met another Naruto in Konoha? Please tell me. Ino yelled. Look at Sakura. I know what you're going through is probably hard, but I don't need to take this. Hinata isn't like that, so you better not accuse her of anything. Sakura looked down, a shadow covering her face. Mother was right about Naruto. He isn't a man at all. Sakura sprang up as the chair scuffed the tiled floor. Sakura, sighed Ino. Look, I'm sorry. Mumbling. No, it's fine, she said. Where are you going? Sakura laughed. She snorted. It's not always about beauty, you know. Her statement was arrogant. Some men love a woman for her genius, she said. I had a lot of men who wanted to date me. Sakura, Ino said with a tone of surprise. You better not do anything rash. What if he isn't even cheating on you? Ever since we got together, a lot of girls told me Naruto messed with them. Not one, not two. A lot of them. Do you really believe he's innocent? Sakura, informed Ino. You and I both know those rumors were not true. They said the same thing about Kurama. She muttered, HMPH. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to leave now. Take care, Ino. Sakura left the bakery, and Ino watched. She merely shook her head. She whispered, why don't you just separate? Naruto observed his wife getting ready. With her curly hair, makeup, and black dress, she would look stunning. She was attractive, but only on the outside. He glanced at her and then at his phone before asking, where are you going? Out with Dr. Uchiha. He wanted to take me out to dinner to repay me for my hard work. Naruto smiled and said, I like Dr. Uchiha. He's very nice and handsome. Apparently, he's a good cook too. I think he secretly likes me. When Sakura saw Naruto's sense of humor, she rolled her eyes. I guess he is a good cook. Tell him I said hi. I'm going to sleep to rest up for my trip tomorrow. Text me when you reach the restaurant and when you're on your way home, okay? He kissed her forehead. Since the phone incident, Naruto had never been more loving. Yeah, muttered Sakura, I'll let you know.
So this was the end of the series. I hope you enjoyed it. To watch more series like this, subscribe to my channel. Till then, we Weeb offline.